Hi, and welcome to Chapter 31, Learning Objective 3. And what we're going to do in 3 is we're going to take a look at the difference between the real exchange rate and the nominal exchange rate. And if you're already ahead of me and you're going, duh, inflation, yeah, good. That's what you should be thinking. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you. Okay, so taking a look at the determinants of the real and nominal exchange rate. And so the nominal exchange rate is basically how we can trade one currency for another. So if we have the exchange rate of the US dollar, so I'm going to use dollar here, $1 equals 80 yen. Okay. Now, an appreciation basically means an increase in the currency. And we tend to look at it because we're in the United States of what is the dollar doing? If the dollar is appreciating, then we get more foreign currency. Okay, so we said a yen, we said the US dollar was worth 80 yen. Now, if the new exchange rate is $1 is 90 yen, that means we're getting more yen for each dollar, which means the dollar is appreciating. Okay. Now, what does that mean? It basically means you might look at going to Japan on vacation. When the US dollar appreciates, it's better for us, okay? However, it's not as good for our foreign goods in that country because they become more expensive, okay? So the first one is the US citizen in appreciation is positively affected, okay? Japanese goods in the US become less expensive. But on the flip side of that, I should put expensive, you got me. But in the flip side, US goods in Japan become more expensive. Okay, so that's kind of how this works. Let's talk about the opposite effect is depreciation. And again, we're looking at this from the stance of $1, okay? Now again, how much foreign currency, the trade. So basically when the dollar appreciates, so here we'll start here with $1 equals 80 yen. The US dollar depreciates and $1 only gets us 70 yen. So think about for a minute who is happy and who's sad. So when we look at that, we would say, okay, so we wouldn't want to go to Japan, right? Because it's more expensive to do so. US consumers see Japanese goods as more expensive. And the second thing is, but Japanese citizens see US goods as cheaper. Okay. So there's always this what's happening domestically and then what's happening in that other country when we see appreciation or depreciation. The real exchange rate, and remember we talked about the real exchange, well, we talked about the real rate of things, so no inflation. But this is can trade goods and services. Remember, the real is like a physical count. Okay, so the real exchange rate, okay, is the nominal exchange rate, which you're right, has inflation in it, times the domestic price, here, US dollars, divided by the foreign price. So here we will put yen. Okay. So here's our little formula for it. So we have the nominal exchange rate. Oops, I knew that was going to happen. I was already a little too close to that. There we go. Let's do it this way. And then we have the price domestically, so the US dollar, because that's where I'm going to stay to keep this kind of clear to you. And then, and when I say the price, it could be the consumer price index, so the CPI. See the inflation happening here. And then the Japanese consumer price index. Okay, so that's the real exchange rate. A depreciation in the real exchange rate means that US goods become cheaper. What does that mean? It means we're going to export more. And what are we going to do? If we're looking at the difference between the US good and the Japanese good, that Japanese good is going to seem quite expensive to us, so we're going to buy here at home. So I would say US consumers buy US goods, not as many foreign goods, but Japanese citizens see US goods as cheaper, so they demand more US goods. And what happens? This is the net effect of a depreciation or a weakening of the dollar. An appreciation, again, now what would happen? US goods are more expensive. So the Japanese citizen is going to buy the Japanese product. Okay. We are going to see Japanese goods as being less expensive here in the US. We're going to demand more of them. Because they're less expensive. So we're going to want to import more. And so this is basically the net effect. Lower exports, higher imports, lower net exports. Okay, so let's try our hand at this to compute the real exchange rate. So the exchange rate is 10 pesos per dollar. The price of a tall Starbucks latte is $3 in the US and 24 pesos in Mexico. So remember, how do we find the real exchange rate? I'll just put a little R here. We take the nominal exchange rate times the domestic price divided by the foreign price. Okay, so that's our formula. And so what is the price of a US latte measured in pesos? And then calculate the real exchange rate. Okay, so first we're going to do the exchange rate. So the price of a US latte measured in pesos. So we want the exchange rate and then calculate. Okay, so what's the price of US lattes? It is 30 pesos per latte, just the $10 times the $3, okay? So let me make sure I make that clear. And that is the exchange rate, in this case, 10 pesos times the domestic price, which equals $3, $30. Okay. So 30 pesos per US latte. Now, to calculate the real exchange rate again is where we're going to use this idea of the exchange rate times the price domestically in dollars and then the price in foreign and this would be pesos. Okay. So here we're going to take 30 pesos per US latte and then divide that by the 24 pesos for Mexican latte. Now remember, real is the real physical product. So what we essentially get from this is 1.25 Mexican lattes per US latte. In the real exchange rate, we're talking about what if we didn't have currency? And what would happen, how much more good do I get or how much less good do I get? So here, if it's 1.25 Mexican lattes per US latte, you only get one latte in the US. But you get 1.25 lattes in Mexico. And if it's both Starbucks and you work on the Mexican border, maybe in San Diego or something, you would buy your lattes in Mexico because they appear cheaper to you. So the real exchange rate is a good to good. It's a barter type of system. Okay, that's the end of this learning objective, and I'll see you back at the next one.